On January 9th last year, I broke the story about a new Indian airline built by an aviation and travel industry veteran.
So this journey, if you ask me, the idea was seeded almost 10 years back. And it was seeded around the time when my past airline, Kingfisher, shut down.
I had known Manoj Chacko since his days as an executive vice president of Kingfisher Airlines between 2009 and 2012. Manoj had literally established from ground up the sales and network functions for Vijay Mallya's five-star carrier. Before that, he had set up Emirates commercial operations in India. After Kingfisher shut down, he headed business travel for Kwoni, which later became SOTC. And finally, before setting up the airline, he was executive vice president of global BPO WNS. Now, I'd been aware of Manoj's plans of setting up an airline for years. It was therefore serendipitous that I should write about Fly91 first when he was ready to talk about it after roping in his first big investor, Harsha Raghavan, the man who had set up the operations of Canadian billionaire Prem Vatsa's Fairfax investment in India. The reactions to my story, however, ranged from mild amusement to cynicism. And naturally so. You see, the Jet Airways story seemed to be almost over. Go First was months away from applying for insolvency, and SpiceJet's operational and financial troubles seemed unending. Only Indigo was growing, and Air India was weeks away from making that massive aircraft order that would make it one of the major players in a virtual oligopoly that the industry has now become. Moreover, almost every regional airline ever in India, except perhaps one, had failed in India. What were Fly91's chances? But where others saw problems, Manoj Chacko saw opportunities.
The question I ask myself is, why does India, with such a large country, 1.4 billion population, more than 200 plus airports, not have last mile connectivity into a lot of these prosperous cities? And that is how the journey of Fly91 started.
On Monday, just 14 months after making his plans public, Manoj Chacko saw his airline's first flight fire up, taxi between water and land across the new Goa airport runway, and take to the air. As Fly91 enters the big, bad world of Indian aviation, I speak to the man piloting the airline about his journey and the journey of his idea, from mind to metal. It's Thursday, the 21st of March. I'm Anirban Chaudhary, and you're listening to this very special corner of his conversation only on the Morning Brief. Manoj, very warm welcome to the Morning Brief. Congratulations, first of all. India's latest airline, if I may call it that.
Thanks, Anirban. Thank you for that. It's been a long journey, and really appreciate you staying in touch through all these years, through a whole host of companies that I've worked for. Thank you.
Manoj, let's start with the name, right? Very simple question. What does Fly91 mean?
Okay, so 91 is the India calling code. So from anywhere in the world, when you call, in our good old days, when you would do a STD call, you actually dial 91 to start. We decided that 91 actually stands for India. So Fly91 in a way means Fly India. Okay, and it just had a very nice ring to it. And it is a name that just appealed to us. So Fly91 actually stands for Fly India, Fly Bharat. That's what it is.
Your journey in the aviation and travel industry has been checkered, long, insightful. What were the lessons and experiences that finally, added to this idea of setting up a new airline?
So this journey has been a pretty interesting journey. If I take my last 3 decades, while I started off as an engineer working for, India's leading engineering company, Larsen & Toubro, I spent about 25 years of my life across various facets of travel and aviation. Interestingly, before I got into Emirates, I used to work with Spencer and Company, which was the general sales agents for KLM Northwest. And that's really where I actually cut my teeth, where I learned the nuances of both airline as well as the travel agency side of the business. Post which,
Mhm.
of course, Emirates, I was part of the startup team at Hyderabad. And then I set up Bangalore, Cochin, managed Emirates in North India, Western India. And then, of course, my interesting stint at Kingfisher. In fact, my Kingfisher stint was in two parts. The first part was when I set up the airline, and post which, after the Deccan merger, I decided to move on. I worked with American Express running their travel business for 3 years. And then I rejoined Kingfisher, trying to help fix the airline. So I've seen what it takes to build a great airline, and I've seen what it takes to also, lose a good airline and the challenges associated with that and what can go wrong. And then, of course, post that, Coney, SOTC, great stint. I was a CEO for the corporate travel business. And my last assignment, 5+ years at WNS running a global operation. Yes, through this entire journey, Anirban, lot of learnings. It also taught me things that we should not do. So my regular, message to all my team members at Fly91 is there are 10 things that I learned in my last 25 years in travel and aviation. There are three of them that we will absolutely implement, and seven of them that we will never ever implement.
Tell me some of them.
So I think one of the fundamentals that I always very strongly believe is aviation or an airline is actually nothing but a transportation company. Okay, aviation is not hospitality. Hospitality is just one small facet. So the moment you start, every successful airline in the world, when you look at it, they run it like a transportation company. Every failed airline, okay, looks at aviation only from the lens of hospitality and the service industry. And that is where, if you ask me, is one of the fundamental issues. There are basics in aviation you need to follow. Your product is not what you serve on board. Your product is your network. Your product is the way you sweat your asset. These are very simple fundamentals. So all I'm saying, Anirban, is that airlines should focus 80% of their energies on operations, the core, okay? 20%, depending on what category of airline you have. A full service carrier, yes, invest 20% of your time in focusing on hospitality, focusing on how you deal with the customer, all of that stuff. But your core can't be hospitality. I think that's the only point I'm trying to make.
Let's come to now the journey of Fly91, the idea itself. So let's start from where this idea was seeded, and then, sort of your journey. Was it smoother than you would have expected or more difficult?
So this journey, if you ask me, the idea was seeded almost 10 years back. And it was seeded around the time when my past airline, Kingfisher, shut down. Okay. And one of the things that I noticed at that point of time, and I was, largely responsible along with the team to build a very, very robust regional network. The airline had, close to 25, 28 ATR aircrafts that used to fly into tier two, tier three cities, Kulu, Shimla, Dharamshala, Hubli, Kolhapur, Mysore, Tuticorin. I mean, just so many cities that used to fly in. And those days there was no VGF. Those days there was no Udan. Okay, and these were some of the most profitable sectors that we used to operate. Okay, and great aircraft utilization, extremely frugal cost of operations. And that always stuck in my mind because once Kingfisher shut down, a lot of these stations just went off the grid. Okay, we saw other players come in and operate. But that is really the time when the seeds were sown in my head. And the question I asked myself is why does India, with such a large country, 1.4 billion population, I mean, more than 200 plus airports, not have last mile connectivity into a lot of these prosperous cities? And that is how the journey of Fly91 started, saying that there is an opportunity for a pure play regional airline in a country like India, which is one of the fastest growing, largest aviation markets in the world. And that's really where the journey started. I would say almost 10 years back is when the seeds got planted in my mind, Anirban.
So Manoj, 10 years, I mean, it's phenomenal that the idea not just stayed with you, but also evolved through your various stints in not just airline companies, but quite far away from airlines, as far away as WNS, and you never let go of that idea. Whenever you're starting an airline, more than anything else, I think you need vast reserves of patience, because you can be doing the perfect kind of paperwork, hiring, planning, and everything, and you could be absolutely correct in your due diligence, but still there could be months where nothing happens. You just get no kind of a response from the regulators, the ministry. Was that the experience with you? How did you cope? Just tell me about the journey once you started implementing the idea that had seeded in your head for so long.
Yeah, so I think two things. One is this project needed tons of patience, and this project needed tons of perseverance. I think these are two things which absolutely is a must to have for a project like this, and especially here at Fly91. But interestingly, I would kind of bucket my journey into three buckets, and then I'll tell you in each bucket, how exactly these panned out. Obviously, the first 5 to 6 years was just basically, thinking, germinating the idea. It was more of a weekend. You're chit chatting with friends, and the usual stuff. Let's start an airline. Okay, then it gets serious, and you say, okay, now I need to put a business plan together. Okay, so that took some time. But and then if you really ask me, the most painful, frustrating part was actually the fundraising. Okay, not the regulatory part. I was absolutely pleasantly surprised at the speed and efficiency with which the regulators worked through this process. From the day we applied for our NOC, we got our NOC in 3 months. From the day we got our NOC to the day we got our AOC was like about 10 months. Okay, which is just absolutely brilliant. And I'm telling you, I mean, I've been dealing with the regulators. I've been dealing with the ministry, for a number of years in the past, and now it's an absolutely different experience. I think in this entire 1 year, I must have personally been at the regulator's office or in the ministry, maybe not more than 3 or 4 times. Okay, and those two more courtesy visits than anything else.
Okay, so let's then come to the investor bit, but I'd like to tell you one insight that I have into this when it comes to fundraising. We have seen many airlines that are started by people just to get into the glamour of the business. And we have seen these airlines dying out fairly soon. We have seen founders who do know about the airline business but exert too much control over the airline, and that too we've seen not meeting a very good end. Let's just put it that way. A good trend was started by Akasa in the way that the airline was envisaged and built by people who actually understood the airline business. And I think that's what attracted Mr. Jhunjhunwala to the airline industry, saying these are a set of people who actually know how to do business. They have been in the airline business, they're airline veterans, and they are the ones who will run the airline. Fly 91 is obviously no different. It just not just has you, who is an airline and travel industry veteran, but also your team. So tell me about the fundraising journey, of course, and what the difficulties that you faced. I read that the investors kept throwing the same joke at you to become a millionaire. Start an airline as a billionaire, and then
Yeah.
the age-old adage. And did the fact that with a team of airline veterans is starting a new career, did that help at all?
So again, that journey was possibly the most painful part of entire build-up of Fly91, Anirban. And I heard the billionaire to millionaire joke. I don't know how many times. Okay, but every time I heard that, my counter was every time an aviation professional turned as an aviation entrepreneur, he always created a successful airline. Okay, and my examples would start with Rakesh Gangwal, Adil Ali, David Neilman. I mean, say whole bunch of examples. And it's very interesting if you go and look at some of the most successful,
Hmm.
all of them, aviation professionals, spent 25, 30 years in the industry. And they actually started airlines where they ensured that all the mistakes that their past airlines did was not repeated. Of course, Vinay at Akasa and his team are a great example. That set up an airline just ahead of Fly91. So I think these examples actually started giving investors a little bit of confidence.
Yeah, but since it's aviation, it just can't be easy, right?
Let me tell you one thing. Nobody sees the pain that an entrepreneur goes to raise money. I've met possibly every single private equity player that exists in the country. I have met every possible family office in this country. I don't know. I mean, I met a lot of people. Okay. And, somebody with possibly a net worth of a few thousand crores, okay, would make you sweat and struggle and, go through 5 rounds of presentation, to possibly put 5 crores in the company. Okay, and even that, at the end of it, they'll say, "Oh, sorry, Manoj, but we got some other priorities and stuff like that." Interestingly, a lot of people were willing to put money into Fly91 for the sake of vanity. We said no to every single one of them, and we
Tell me
actually
such
said
a
no.
tell me about such a conversation, no, please.
So we met up again. I can't take names, but we met
Sure.
up with this extremely wealthy person. When he saw our plan, he kind of said, "Oh, 200 crores. I mean, say, isn't 200 crores too less? We heard that Akasa raised, some 3x of that." And so we said no. Ours is a different model. So he came back saying, "Can you build a business model and all that stuff?" And we said no, our business model is this, and would you like to fund? And he says, yeah, but my son will be so and so, and my family comes from this particular town, and our first flight should be between this town and Delhi. And I was like, okay, but that's not a model. He says, no, 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 airline shuru karne ka, and he wanted to be the chairman and stuff like that. And very clearly it was all about, and uniform kaisa rahega, kya color rahega. And I was like, I'm sorry, uniform is the last of my priorities. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So very clearly, I could have done my 200 crores, not two, I could have actually done 300 crores for one guy. Okay, one shot. Okay, he wanted his group name to be on the aircraft. Okay, and very politely I told him, if you want to set up an airline, I can definitely help you find a very good CEO who can come and run it for you. But I'm really sorry, sir, but I have to politely decline your money. Okay. And
Wonderful.
after that meeting, I was very clear that I'm not going to meet any more rich people who just wanted to throw their money for vanity's sake. So every rupee that we have raised is from professional, astute investors. And that took me a good 2.5 years, maybe over 200 plus serious investor pitches and presentations. And that was really the most frustrating part.
Tell me about the first breakthrough.
So my very first investors who actually backed me were some of my personal friends. Okay, who actually said, Manoj, go ahead, do it. Whatever little money that you require to put in, we are happy to support you. And then our first real breakthrough came with Convergent Finance. Okay, and
Right.
I knew Convergent Finance and Harsha Raghavan and his team from my days at SOTC Kuoni, because Fairfax had acquired SOTC Kuoni, and Harsha sat on my board and all. And then, of course, as we went on this journey, we finally came across Ramesh Damani ji, Amal Parekh ji, who kind of really liked the model. And of course, my initial angel round, I had people like K. Sudarshan, again, a very dear friend of mine who backed me.
Right.
Rajiv Chitra Banu, I mean, she obviously has been with me on this journey. I was the former CEO of JM Financial Services, personal friend, absolutely backed me to the hilt. I had some of my senior colleagues from WNS actually come into my friends and family round. I mean,
Mm.
interestingly, 6 of my senior colleagues from WNS actually came in the angel round. So all I can say today is when I look at my cap table, okay, I have every single investor on my cap table is a professional investor. They're convinced in the team, and they're convinced in the fact that this can really be something that's very different.
Let's talk about Fly91's DNA now and the model which actually did interest and convince so many investors. So, there's an airline which has a base in Goa's new airport, which is a beautiful airport, if I might add. And if I'm not mistaken in describing it, it is a pan India regional airline in the sense that it'll work to connect metros to non metros and places where you, which was the inspiration for the idea that came to your head. It will connect metros to places where people don't usually go, which is limited connectivity but tremendous amounts of demand. Is that the model that you're looking at, and how does it evolve from here?
Yeah. So interestingly, the Mopa airport is a brilliant airport. GMR has done a fantastic job to build such a wonderful airport out here. We are the first greenfield airline to be set up in a greenfield airport in India.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
and we take a lot of pride in that. Okay, from a model perspective, Anirban, our model is very simple. I mean, say we have a base. We have picked Goa. Goa is the eighth busiest destination in the country. Goa is the capital for meetings, incentives, conferences, international charters come into Goa. Goa is a great wedding destination. So it ticks a lot of boxes, and that's the
Hmm.
key reason why we picked on Goa as the first base. Our model is every base that we set up, we are going to park 6 to 7 aircrafts. Okay. And then we look for 8 to 10 cities that are in a 1 to 1.5 hour flying distance around this particular base. Because philosophically, the model that we have created is the aircraft and the crew leave, do the number of flights, come back to base every day. The pilots come home, the crew come home, there's no night halting, there is no deadheading, nothing. After 12 months, we're going to set up the second base where we're going to park the next 6 to 7 aircrafts. And around that base, we are going to connect another 8 to 10 cities. Year three, we go to base three, base four, base five. So at the end of 5 years in our business plan, there are going to be five bases, each base having 6 to 7 aircraft. So we're going to be somewhere between 32 to 35 airplanes at the end of 5 years. And we would have connected 50 cities in India. Each base, standalone base, each base will connect its own set of cities. So we are very closely looking at Navi Mumbai. We are very closely looking at Noida International. So that is really a business model, simple business model. Goa continues to be our headquarters. So we built a beautiful 14,000 square feet facility here in Goa. Any flight anywhere in the country would get dispatched from Goa. My dispatchers sit here, my OCCs here, my safety team, everybody sits here. So that's the model, Anirban. Simple, straightforward, uncluttered model.
You're actually a new airline in the true sense of the word, because not just Goa, every base that you're choosing in the next three phases that you spoke about is a greenfield airport. This is also a perfect, as perfect a hub and spoke model that one can think of, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I drew inspiration from what Adil did with Air Arabia. He had a base in Sharjah. Every aircraft would go, come back to base. Then he built his next base in Morocco. Then he's got a base in Egypt. I mean, so and each one of these bases are independent of each other. They're not mixing up. It's not that pilots start flying in the morning, land up in a different city. 5 days on a trot, they're living in five different hotels. It adds to fatigue. It adds to cost. So
Mm.
many other things. So right now, I've got no hotel contracts in any city outside of Goa right now. Goa is the only place in the country where there are five fully functional airports in an under 3.5 hour driving distance.
Mm. Mm.
So if you have a diversion, if you have a disruption, recovering from that, whether it's for crew, whether it's for the machine, whether it's for passengers, is very easy.
So you've decided to fly from Goa to Hyderabad, Bengaluru, and Sindhudurg, and later add flights to Agati, Jalgaon, Pune, and so on. Tell me, what can the customers expect in terms of onboard services and pricing?
Our service on board is simple service in the sense that it's largely snackables. Okay, so you'll get cookies, you'll get nachos, you will get cashew nuts, stuff like that.
And short flights. Hmm.
Short flights are hour and a half. Again, we have kept the price points extremely affordable. Extremely affordable. Okay, so for example, if a father and mother are traveling with two kids, okay, the idea is with 500 rupees, 600 rupees, everybody should be able to snack on something, have a high quality drink, okay, a juice or a coffee or a tea or whatever, and actually get to the other end of the flight without having to break the bank.
And the
So,
fares
so
themselves?
So the fares we have launched an inaugural offer. I mean, say right now, which is 1991 all inclusive 1991 fare, all inclusive, all sectors. Okay,
Hmm.
that's just an introductory price just to get people,
Of course.
to just attract them. But otherwise, our market pricing would of course be competitive. We will not be a cheap airline. I want to make that very clear. At the same time, we are also not going to be opportunistic. That is also something I want to very clearly highlight. Just because at one last seat is available and there's a huge demand that day, we are not going to sell that ticket at 18,000 and 20,000 and stuff like that.
Got
Okay,
it.
so we would be reasonable, but at the same time, we are here to make money. We are a for-profit airline. Okay, and yeah, we'll make sure that we do that.
One question on the choice of your aircraft. Smaller aircraft, regional aircraft, haven't worked for everyone. Let's just put it that way. Even for a behemoth like Indigo, if I can call it that, the economics, the volume economics really haven't worked. I mean, it's either too fuel guzzling for the number of passengers that they get each flight, or maintenance problems. Why do you think Fly91 will succeed, steering clear of the usual 320, 737s, etc., and choosing the kind of aircraft you have chosen?
So yeah, so I completely disagree with with people when it comes to regional aircraft, especially the regional turboprop aircraft. So let me spend a little bit of time explaining. So obviously the ATR 72 is the safest aircraft in the world. Okay, it's got an amazing track record on safety. It is the most fuel efficient aircraft in a 70 plus seater category. And let me give you some statistics. This aircraft burns roughly about 600 kilos of fuel for every hour that it flies. Now comes the other cost. Yes, your cockpit cost is the same on an ATR, same as that on a 320 or a 737. The cost can be defrayed over 186 passengers. In our case, it can only be defrayed over 70 passengers. But then when it comes to maintenance of the asset, when it comes to lease rental, okay, you're actually paying one third, one fourth of the cost that you need to pay on the bigger jets. Yes, I'm limited by the number of seats that I can make revenue, but the day when the passenger loads are not there, I burn far less money than flying a 320 or a 737.
Okay, okay. Let's talk about revenues. And in that, we can't not talk about the kind of environment that you're getting in. The Indian aviation industry, for all practical purposes, has become a duopoly of sorts, or at least an oligopoly. Do you see it manifesting itself in segments such as, or aspects such as prices, or hiring, or network planning? And what is Fly91's gameplay to disrupt this market situation, or to be a parallel player to this?
I personally believe that with two very professional groups now leading aviation, a lot of insanity that used to happen in this industry is gone. Okay, this industry used to be run by whims and fancies and egos with people in the past. I think that's all gone. There is a lot more sanity that has come into pricing. Aviation has now become far more responsible than what it was possibly 10 to 15 years back. So I think it is good. Okay, it's good for the industry. You no longer see absolute irrational fare wars that used to happen before, which I think is a very positive trend. Having said that, our strategy is, we are not here to compete with anybody. And I've made this very clearly. We are here to coexist. We are really the last mile connectivity airline in the country. In fact, we have created open APIs into our system, which says anybody wants to plug into my system and sell the inventory, please go ahead and do it. So tomorrow, for example, if Economic Times wants to sell my inventory, they can just plug into my API. If tomorrow any airline wants to plug in, they can do it. A bus company wants to plug in, they can do it. We are an air transportation company. I'm not an airline. We are an air transportation company. Okay, anybody that sees value in my inventory can pick it up and sell. And again, our price point remains uniform across all channels. Okay, so we are agnostic to the channel. So as an example, we started Goa Agati to Lakshadweep.
Mhm.
Any airline that flies into Mopa wants to pick my inventory and sell it as a through ticket, be my guest. No issues at all. So that is the approach we are taking. I know it's a
But
contrarian
the
approach.
airline will have to get into an agreement with you, right? In the sense of a code share or an interline or something.
It'll be a one-page agreement. It's more the technology that enables it. Any airline comes to me 7 days flat, my inventory can show on any airline that wants to build and sell a product.
So you're in conversations with airlines.
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
there are conversations
Uh,
going on. We're also in conversations with some non-airlines as well. So again, we'll make some announcements soon. But we're definitely here to position ourselves very differently on this aspect.
So, Manoj, an airline, albeit as frugal as yours and backed by the government supported scheme for regional airlines in India, will still need a steady cash flow. Because, let's not forget that many an airline in India and the world, of course, have fallen by the wayside because, well, funds dried up. How will you ensure steady inflow of capital into your airline?
One thing that everybody forgets in the equation is that we also going to be earning revenue. Okay, so it's not that we're going to burn through 200 crores. Okay, so at this point in time, we don't see a need to raise any more money right now. But let me also tell you, when we embarked on this journey to start Fly91, all that we had was an Excel sheet and a PowerPoint. Okay, and the credibility of the team, the credibility of the founders, correct? Today we have set it up. Okay, so with just this, if we were able to raise $25 million, if tomorrow we need to raise more money, I don't think that's ever going to be an issue, because now we actually will demonstrate that all of what we told on our PowerPoints and all of that we showed in the Excel sheets had now become a reality. The second point, also very interestingly, is we did a lot of research and we are yet to come across a regional airline anywhere in the world to actually start with this quantum of capital. Okay, so I would kind of say that we are in a very comfortable position. I think we have a couple of very unique things in our model. So the first one is Goa as a location has been very attractive, especially to the pilots and engineer community. Okay, we've possibly had the maximum response to our call out for pilots. Also, I think the fact that you come home to base every day. So typically in a pilot life cycle, when they start, they really want to kind of, there's a huge challenge to get jobs. So you find the people out there. Then they want to fly the big jets, and then at some point of time, by the time they get to their mid 30s, early 40s, they want to get back their family lives. They want to have something far more stable, steady. And that is what is Fly91 offering them. So most of our pilots who have come on board, our captains who have come on board, are typically in that age profile, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 hours of flying. But now they want a job where they enjoy their flying. And of course, from a pay parity perspective, we have benchmarked our salary levels with the market leaders. Also, Anirban, I'm not building out, 20, 30, 40 aircraft induction a year. We are going to be inducting 6 to 7 planes a year. So our growth is slow, steady. Okay, so I just don't foresee that as a problem at all.
Mr. Manoj Chakos, thank you so much. I am waiting to fly your lovely airline and I hope others do too. Congratulations and all the very best. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Look forward to welcoming you on board, Anirban. Thanks.
Fly 91's runway to the skies hasn't been easy, and its flight path would not be altogether smooth either. Coexistence with competition is great, but any new Indian airline will have to break through the maze of traffic, routes, slots, and pricing power that is concentrated in the hands of its few competitors. In fact, some of the routes that Fly 91 may want to operate on may already be a monopoly of an Indigo, Air India, or a SpiceJet. Moreover, infrastructure and sometimes even basic functioning in small airports could be a problem. And of course, like Manoj himself admitted, the revenue economics of flying smaller planes in the Indian market that runs only on volumes is complex. But then, Fly91 is unlike any other regional airline that has flown in India yet, in terms of its model, its structured expansion plans, the brilliant team piloting it, and some solid initial financial thrust. So, will Fly91 break the mold of regional carriers in India? Let's keep looking to the skies for answers. That's it for today. You were listening to this episode on The Morning Brief. It was produced by Vinay Joshi and sound designed by Amrit Reggie. The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Do listen, share and subscribe. This is your host Anirban Chaudhary signing off. Have a good one.